Bader Ginsburg. The name itself gives you a blow of power. Many know this woman as RBG, an icon, a legend, a late Supreme Court justice, and a strong woman who lost the battle against cancer. Notorious RBG passed away on September 18th, 2020, and the world lost a legend. But how did this 5'1" Jewish girl from Brooklyn rise to the highest court in America? Who really was RBG? There is so much more to this icon than many people realize. So let's dive right in to her iconic and legendary life. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a typical early life. She was born on March 15, 1993. However, Ruth wasn't actually her first name. Her original birth name was Joanne. Then, throughout the years, she turned into Ruth Bader Ginsburg. When she was young, her parents named her Joanne. But then at home, Ruth was always known for standing up for herself and kicking. So she was called Kiki. And then later on in grade school, Ruth was called Ruth. And that's how she became Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, little Joanne was not the Baders' first and only child. Nathan and Cecilia, her parents, welcomed another baby girl, Marilyn, 5 years earlier before Ruth was born. However, Marilyn passed away after a sudden bout of meningitis at 6 years old when Ruth was only over a year old. Her parents had never wanted more children, so from then on, Ginsburg was the only child of the family. But she still managed to keep her parents plenty busy. Now, Ruth was always known for standing up for herself, not just for herself, but for others as well. And throughout her life, her power, her legendary being of wanting to stand up for others and herself becomes a key part of herself. Now, every icon and legend has their own love story to tell, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg had one specific one. Now, RBG got to do something her mother had never gotten to do, which was go to school. Straight out of high school, she was enrolled into Cornell University, and there she met the love of her life, a young man by the name Martin Ginsburg. Years later, Ruth would say that her husband was, quote, the only young man I dated who cared that I had a brain. He was a generously silly and loved to entertain people. A perfect foil to the shy, hardworking Ruth. Martin and Ruth Bader Ginsburg remained in each other's lives for the rest of their lives, despite the numerous hardships that they were had their way. However, in 2010, the Ginsburg family suffered one of the greatest losses. Martin Ginsburg passed away from cancer, just days after their 56th anniversary. His death was devastating for the Ginsburg family, but Ruth knew her husband realized that the duty had to come before everything else. So the next day after her very own husband passed away, she went to work on the bench. Now, before Martin passed away, Ginsburg was faced with a blatant sexism from the moment she entered the workforce. After the newlyweds moved to Oklahoma, she took a job in the Social Security Administration. But before she had even gotten started, she found herself demoted. Why? She mentioned that she was pregnant to another employee. The SSA figured a pregnant woman shouldn't be able to do her job nearly as well, so they demoted her and cut her pay. Now, after beginning law school at Harvard, she was only one of 9 women in her class of over 500. Martin took a job in Ginsburg's hometown, so she transferred to Columbia. The switch allowed Ginsburg to earn one of the countless firsts in her life. She was the first woman to ever be in the 2 majors in law reviews, the Harvard Law Review and the Columbian Law Review. She eventually graduated, and there she met another first. In her class, she quickly realized the world outside of university was stacked against her. She was the top student in her class, and she was glowing recommendations from every single one of her professors. She was a shoo-in to land a job as a clerk at the Supreme Court Justice, but they all turned her down just because of her gender. Ginsburg ended up taking a job that she was completely overqualified for. But let's talk about who really was Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a mother of 2 children, James and Jane Ginsburg. RBG was a woman who advocated for women's rights, gender equality, LGBTQ+ equality, and more. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was well known for her spot on the Supreme Court. She was a justice for over 13 years. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed by President Bill Clinton on June 14, 1993, and from that day on, her life was changed forever. From that day, she told the world that women could do it. A woman could be on the Supreme Court Justice. She was also the 2nd woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court. She was a legend. She did so many things to change the world, and without her, so many things would be so different. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a woman who stood up and advocated for women's rights. In 1972, Ginsburg co-founded the Women's Rights Project at the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. And in 1973, she became the project's general counsel. The Women's Rights Project and related ACLU projects participated in more than 300 discrimination cases by 1974. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was an icon that so many people looked up to. I even looked up to her. Now, the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was originally diagnosed with a very early stage. Ginsburg's pathological cancer had been cured after she went beyond 5 years cancer-free. However, she passed away on September 18, 2020 in Washington, D.C. at her home where she was surrounded by her entire family. RBG passed away from her cancer and now lies in the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. This was the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But what was the outcome of everything that's happened? Well, now there's an open spot in the Supreme Court, but who will fill it? That's a question to come on. With the elections coming close, this could be anyone's game. Now, before I end my speech, I would like to take a second to realize that someone's life was taken away. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Our heart goes out to that family. as this is a tough time, not